So with that, I'm going to turn this microphone over to our speaker here, Dr. Lanny Rielber. So if you'll come up and do your magic here.
Oh, well, good morning, everybody. It is an honor for me to be presenting on this traditional land of the Salish people, as well as others that have laid claim to it with their history and their legacies. I am honored to be the guest of this organization that was formed by Jonathan and Jay Eagleman for the purpose of serving many of you Class 7 teachers. And I was invited to a meeting among some of the people at this grassroots level to look after the interests of the Class 7 teachers and some of the people that are teaching the language. And in those Zoom sessions, I was posed with the question, how are we going to solve this and get the message out of the needs of the Class 7 teachers? Not only that, language teachers per se, and all our native teachers. So in retrospect, I sat among the discussions and I recommended that we do an assessment. And the assessment basically, hopefully I'll get to it after I got a lot of documents here. I was figuring it's gonna take me about 3 days. No. Anyway, what we have here is that we have to start thinking as people empowering and taking control of our educational initiatives. What that means is that we can't wait and let things go by. We can't wait for the languages to disappear. We can't just watch some of the elders that are sacred keepers of our music, of our way of thinking, our languages, to just pass by. We have to step up today. And the question that was posed to me, that we need to present this information in the form of an assessment that the Western thinkers can actualize. So that's what my purpose was in that recommendation, to create this data to say what we want to say. I'm basically an independent language advocate. Although I represent the Apsaloga Nation, my family, my extended family, my clan, the respective tribes that my motherland of the Arikara, Mandan, Hidatsa, as well as the Apsaloga on my paternal side, as well as the adoption of the Lakota, Dakota, Kiowa. These are the people I represent. I've also in a professional scenario, I've worked with the Little Shell. I've also been working with Jay as well, and some of the people, welcome them once again over in Canada, in the Edmonton area, as well as North Battleford. I was over there recently, and we had a good session on the Plains Indian Sign Language. I was very impressed by Jonathan and Jay's initiative to look after the needs of you teachers. They were wondering how we could serve our people here. And in their hearts, I could see that they meant business. In their hearts and their words, that I knew that they cared enough for you people. So that's why I joined them. Because they had that love and that passion. And you could see from the words that Jonathan shared with us that he has a passion. And I sat with them and I realized that he's a visionary. He looked after our people in the legislature with other people in that Native American caucus to get some resources for people like you. But our challenge is getting these resources to you. It's almost like the BIA. They might spend $100,000 and we're lucky on the ground floor to get maybe a 10th of that, even a 20th, or we got even our own kind in those levels that are taking chunks of that money, resources, and utilizing it for their own trips or their inactivity to almost like it's like our own people sometimes are our own adversaries. Not only that, are we faced with this mainstream Western society that was built on lies and misinformation. Oh, we see it all the time on the show that they have somebody that talks in the world, lies continually, and the broken treaties and the delusions of their history based on their initiative to conquer and create genocide among our people. I began to question that even today. And it's this purpose that we go out to revitalize our strengths, our foundations, what it means for us to be Native people, our identity, our great civilizations. That's where we're faced today. Are you going to watch and let it go by? Are you going to wait for the next wake for one of those elders? No, we got to take action today. And we're in a field of competition with people that have a system that we have to learn how to play their game. And that means we might have to utilize it as a tool, not get indoctrinated by it, not get assimilated by it, not to be acculturated by it, but use it as a tool. And that's where this assessment came in, because they think in a deductive way in this Western world. It's about taking something and breaking it down to where they end up saying things again. I know that my presentation is focused on how do we create more contact time, but I got some other points to lead into this. I want to thank the Dakota people, Ramey Growing Thunder and her entourage. I pray for recovery and healing for your people. As I drove down the road, I could reflect in my days in the Bear Lodge ceremony among the Lakota that the people that stood behind me were from the Spirit Lake area, as well as Sioux Valley in those piercing ceremonies. And I come back again. Who brought me here? It was the Dakota people. But I also say that I did have some help from some redneck poker players. Boy, I sure like beating them. I seen them. They give me mean looks. One of them lived right on one of the border towns of Hardin. Instead of greeting me like a neighbor, he gave me the finger. It made me more proud that I punished him. I could think of our warriors in the days where they left their adversaries scattered. Even though I was playing cards, I was thinking like that, you know. But that's all I got here. I went on a nice 2-day roll. Thank goodness for Omaha High-Low. As I said, this information has been out there in the wind. Some of you already know that. This information that I'm going to present about creating more contact time is out there. Just here to remind you folks, you got your own way of doing things. My reminder is just a bit of information to remind you. For some of you that are new, for some of you that just kind of woke up, some of you that been in the trenches and nobody told you, the board didn't tell you, the administrator in your schools didn't tell you. Well, I just wanted to share with you that we're here for your cause. And that's the purpose of that. And what I'm sharing is, like I said, maybe thought in a different way for you folks. Some of these were prayers. Some of these were ideas. They were in ceremony, they're in songs, and they're reflection. They've always been here. Because somewhere along the line, the spirit and the supernatural gifts of our people are out there. We just have to connect. And that means fasting. It means going out there and sacrificing. And these things will come back to you. Or they won't come back to you. You'll catch up with them, because some people say, I left my language behind. That is a more powerful force and entity and deity of our people that we cannot put ourselves in front of it. It's ahead of us. It just left some of us behind. And then we see people say, oh, yeah, we're going to get our language back. It's not back. It's still out there. It's a spiritual force, and it's powerful, and it's a gift that we got to cherish, because that's who we are. And when we think about that and we reflect upon that, it will take care of us if you take care of it. It'll take you on a long journey. It'll give you things to think about. It'll give you gifts. It'll bring you to good people like the ones that we see out here that care. All of you, I could see in your heart that you love. You wouldn't be here if you didn't care. And I welcome you. And the good blessings and the passion that you give to each and every one of us, just by your smile, just by your handshake, just by your presence. It is so powerful and awesome. In my point about the assessment, it is a means to say, if some of you aren't aware with it, is it helps you say what you want to say. That's what an assessment is. Anytime somebody in the Western world makes a comment, they use a reference. And I, along with Jay, along with some of the folks at MSU, we put together 55 questions that some of you answered. And I want you to know that if any of you did any grant writing, you need data. And what data does for you is it documents your need. No longer can we go up to Washington dressed in our war bonnets and say we want this. They'll laugh you out of that world. We have to make presentations in the Western sense with this data to get what we need. And many of you who have acquired some A&A funding, you know, and even being a reader myself of grants, that I was trained to look for data. If they have no data, that's points against them. So we just got to play the game just a little bit once in a while. We don't have to be stuck in that realm. But we put together this assessment, and some of you at the time we were in Billings answered it fully. And it's important for planning, because we want to know what you need out there. Not just, yeah, there was a point where somebody said we need resources. What resources do you need? We don't know that. We need somehow to make a plan to identify the resources that we need, or the creation of the resources. And in that survey, we looked at situations where people didn't have any resources. They just hired these teachers and said, you're on your own. And then some of you being teachers, they're not even giving you the same parity of pay for your expertise, for your knowledge, for your upbringing, for the quality of life that you represent a Native person at the same level as some person that came from some urban town like in Billings Heights that probably didn't know beans about natives, but they give them big money, and some of the native guy over here, they give him just a little bit. That's how it goes here. So that's why all of this data come to this concept here of where I will present about increasing contact time from a tribally basically an indigenous perspective. And that's where we're going to start here. Let's go, Mike, for the next one. Here's the title here. Some of you didn't realize on the program, my name is Amaherechias. That means his deeds are well known. I use, that was Lanny Reelber. There's a character that come from Meraki Boy, and we were on the news there. I didn't see him out there. I thought he'd be here, but the wife probably didn't let him come. So let's go to the next slide. There is a Bert Kaline using his method of how to instruct the Cheyenne language. I seen Bert on the registration. There was some guy up at this restaurant said he knew Bert, so I thought it would be good to point that hopefully Bert shows up. Maybe he got lost and went on towards Spokane. Forgot to get off. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, from the last time, what we have is the key point of my presentation. It is, like I said, last time we met, I got the same couple of slides, but it's just a reminder that we got to keep in mind. It's our main goal to discuss. It is our key objective. It is our primary outcome from getting to point A, ground zero, to point B, to speak the language. And all the things in between, that's what Jonathan J. are dealing with, and Mike, and Marcy, and myself. How do we get some of those barriers to help you teachers, to help you administrators? They're in the way. Me, I thinking simply from getting point A to point B, but I know that there are factors and situations and scenarios and conflict to get to that point. And we are organized here today to solve this, because some of this discussion will extend into the breakout sessions. Here's that point that I wanted to present to you again. Before, they say it takes 2,000 hours to learn a language. That is a very complex language like English. Cree, Salish, they're probably in that area. So then they say, we got 180 days in a school year are 36 weeks. Jump over that line. In that survey that we conducted, there were schools in Montana that only taught language for 1 hour. That's not going to do it. 2 hours for some of them. And so what that means is that there are 36 hours per school year of language. We take that into that fat baseline of 2,000 hours to learn Salish. It's going to take 55 years to learn that language. By then, these people who are in those schools are going to have grandchildren. There'll be another generation by the time they learn that language. So we got to let those administrators, we got to let those boards know that they got to change these policies to where you guys get more language into your curricula. You want music, you want geography, you want history, you want math in your languages. Let's go on. Another scenario that I presented last time. We have these nice summer camps where some people send their children. They get maybe a 2-week break from junior. They get about 80 hours. Take that 2,000 factor by that 80, and it means 25 years of school camps before you can speak that language. This data came from Zucchini Pete. So then what we have to consider is that we have to ask ourselves how we're going to get there. How are we going to get 2,000 hours? And that's your challenge. I can't tell you what to do because that information's out there. It's up to you to decide, do I just let this go by? Or do I step in there and start working together with my community? And then we have, again, we have even our own Native people, our own tribal members, trying to be more white than those whites, trying to throw a wrench into our progress because they don't like somebody getting the attention. They don't like somebody getting the credit. It hurts them to see somebody successful because of this colonialistic thinking that we are faced with, where we got to heal. We have to recover. We have to make progress in this recovery, even if it's groups. But again, it's something that either you let it pass by and continue to be sick, or you get the therapy, you get the ceremonies, you put the food down, you put the giveaway material together, and you put it there, and you declare that you need help, whether it's from the Creator or whether it's from a bundle, whether it's from whatever deity that you serve in your civilization, whether it's the pipe or the lodge or the sweat lodge. All of these deities are supernatural. Back that one. How do I schedule 2,000 hours? That's your challenge again. What do I need to plan 2,000 hours? When and where will this occur? Remember, all languages are not the same. There will be some that might take 1,200 hours because literacy is different in some worlds. We know as Native people, our literacy is about the environment. It was just mentioned by Jesse that we follow the patterns of the sun, the moon, and the migratory routes of the buffalo, and we follow them, and we know when the ice breaks or the blossoms come out of the berries and the plums. And we know it's a certain time when the sun changes, when people have pipe ceremonies, when they open bundles that are forms of reference that we have as Native people, that we read the literacy of how the weather patterns might be changing by the activity of the animals. That is our literacy. The movement of the stars, the position of the Big Dipper will tell us a lot of our weather. That literacy is even more powerful than the written word. That written word can burn up. Our literacy of nature and the environment is going to stay sound. Even maybe 3 generations from now, it'll be there for somebody to read. So, for some people, maybe like the Crow, maybe like the Hidatsa, the Nakona, Dakota, Lakota, it might take less if we didn't focus on reading and writing and just speaking. It might take 1,200 hours or 16. Then there are more complex languages back to that 2,000 benchmark. But that 2,000 benchmark is going to keep you in, with a job for a while. Depends on your method. Okay. Now, we got to get serious. As formal as our language, the language is a gift to you. It took care of you. Those words brought us to where we're at today. Somebody in that past who said prayers for us, brought us together, got us some land that we could live on. And they're gone. If some of them came back, they'd probably say, what the hell's the matter with you? Look at what you're doing. You don't even take care of these beautiful gifts that we gave you. And we fought, and their land is mixed with the blood of their sacrifices. Are you doing them honor today? We're doing our best because they were there. And that's why we're here. And we still have that obligation to them. So we need to utilize our own councils, our own boards, even forming our own corporations to create a policy and mission. And we need to collaborate as much as some people don't like to, because they like to see defeat and they're used to defeat. It's going to depend on this tribal leadership. The administrators, and most of all these boards. Some people, some of these boards, they don't give a darn. They're going to go to NIEA. They're going to be dressed like this Roper shirt that I have. The only thing, it'll be a pattern of a bull snake. You'll have some kind of boots that are kind of shaped like maybe ostrich, so they could kind of impress somebody, but they bring nothing back. How was it? Oh, it was a good trip. We went to a Brazilian restaurant. We ate for 3 days. I don't want to hear that. They need to bring back something that maybe was shared by some of the tribes that are succeeding, like the immersion schools, and not only here in Montana, like which Jesse represents, people among the Dene. Some of these people are doing well. The people, the white clay people in Belknap, they stand out in this world. They stand out. That's the kind of information these board people need to realize, that they're at an important role of protecting you. So you ask, how are we going to make more contact time? Who's going to set those rules? Somebody give me the answer. Yeah, boards. Them boards need to sit in some of these conferences. They need to hear and see what you responded to in those assessments. That money from MILP, which Jonathan fought tooth and nail for, stopped somewhere in the middle. Somebody went on a nice trip to Spokane, maybe. Somebody went to the Black Hills. And then some of you teachers working on the ground zero. Oh, I didn't know there was any funding. There's the problem there. Or maybe the tribe got that. And they say, oh, we need to make payroll, so let's put this in a general fund. Forget about the language. We got to keep and satisfy our voters. And it's gone. That's the reality. Even when Biden tried to help, some of it went to general funds of some of the nations, and people didn't get to see home repairs. So that's how important it is. If we're going to set anywhere, we got to be as a team, and not to put those people on the spot. We just need to educate them and let them understand that their role as a board member is policy, governance, as well as capital campaign. Capital campaign means raising funds, not going on these trips to NIEA or some of the title programs are bilingual, or Johnson O'Malley, or even the Montana conferences. That's not their role. Well, they could go there, maybe there's money, but they got to realize that some of the needs that we have as educators, I say we because I'm an educator myself. I teach. I recently taught over in North Battleford. I taught in McLaughlin. I teach in MHA occasionally. I teach with the Wildla School people. There's some other Crow schools. I haven't joined them. I like them people of the mighty few. We got to have this preparation and training. If we don't have preparation, How are we going to go into a school and teach this language? A lot of problems that we've seen in the past is that we've had some scenarios where people just learned how to speak the language and hired as teachers. They didn't have any training of some of the methods like immersion, Montessori, total physical response, and maybe master apprentice. Their idea of teaching was like how they were treated in the boarding schools, how they were treated with behaviors, authoritarian type of methods that put them at the center and not as a holistic group. They were faced with a situation that's how they learned. And they were punished too. Some people got beat, some people got tormented. I can't say I was part of that crowd, although I was kind of mischievous. And I had some times where the teacher drugged me through the hallway by my ear over in Parshall, North Dakota. I threw a snowball one time, and that doggone math teacher, why did he look around the corner? And I nailed him good in the head. That son of a gun, he made me learn the North Dakota Constitution. It took me 10 days to memorize that darn document. Then he made me learn all of the laws of math. And then he made me memorize in front of him the rules of divisibility. And he tortured me that way. And that was worse. Some of those Hidatsa and Ree folks would go by one of the grammar teachers and smash her sandwich, go by. Then I'd get blamed. Or you'd have a piece of fruit there and somebody took a bite and put it back. She's walking and somebody throws something at her back. Look, who did that? Wasn't me. But that witch made me learn grammar, prepositions, past, future tense, verbs. Oh, geez, she punished me. Then you got to read this Shakespeare. You got to read James Thurber. You got to read Edgar Allan Poe. God, I didn't even do that either. And I wonder why I went through education and got a master's in math teaching support. If it wasn't for that witch, and if it wasn't for that math teacher where I threw a snowball and then writing that dissertation, I went to thank her and that lady beat me again. And I was thinking, nah, she beat me again because she left and went to another journey. I didn't get a chance to thank her. Let's go to the next one. Okay, you think about it. More complex languages, Cree, Piikani, Anahi. If we have 2,000 hours, we got 30 hours per week. Basically, we got 66 weeks. You have 9 months in a school year. We're looking at about 2 years of getting this done. By not fulfilling the standard of writing and reading, you can, Jesse will tell you that he knows you could get them speaking, right, Jess? In a few months, using these methods. So we got a plan to get there. And some of you are here because that school administration didn't give you resources. It didn't give you training, because when we did that assessment, we found the last time any class 7 teachers got any training was what, Jabe? About 2015, that is, geez, that's 6 years ago before any training was offered. That's a failure. But then again, maybe it was an advantage because it got us here. So we could address this. And some of these scenarios, as much as we care and want to speak, have our students speak that language, we didn't get enough time. We didn't get enough time, and we found that in that assessment. We didn't get enough resources to help them. And they went through those 4 years and they went by. Oh, maybe they could count. Maybe they knew some colors, but were they able to converse? Or even at a minimum, listen and understand what's going on in a conversation? At least we could have got that, but maybe not. And we've got to ask ourselves, it's not our fault. It's the system that didn't set up a plan or the resources and give me the tools to get to where I need to get from point A to point B. Let's go to the next one. Okay, here's one basically for adult speakers. This is maybe Crow, Dakota, Nakona, based on full immersion or master apprentice. If you got about 5 or 6 hours today that you dedicate to this program, just to speak, Jess, all of our Montana languages are all different, aren't they? Some are more complex and some are more straightforward that have not that complexity. So it's possible that you know, Jess, that some of these languages could be learned sooner than others, right? So in the terms of a Siouan language like Crow, Dakota, and Nakona, let's say we had 1,200 hours, we take that by the 6 hours a day, we can do it in 200 days. Take that 200 by 20 days per week, in 10 weeks or 2.5 months, we can get people speaking the Siouan type languages. Maybe there's some other easier ones, but that's doable. Let's move on. Here's something more realistic. Remember, don't let some other people come into your community and tell you what fluency is. The Blackfeet certainly aren't going to do that. The Salish aren't going to do that. They represent Montana that take control of their water compact and their rules and the laws and utilize the treaties to their advantage. I respect that. So then if it was just saying fluency, maybe that's just speaking. Like I said, like Jesse said, our literacy is in that universe and nature. It's not in that written word. Although it's convenient because we got to make those consolations in the Western world, we have to adapt somehow and utilize knowledge from that world because our people are going to function in there. And we want them to win. We want them to have victory. And if we don't accept these tools, we're going to be a victim. We're going to be around, hanging around the res, looking for money for cigarettes or something, smelling commodities. I'm not talking about the market. Here's for $1,600. We could do it in 5 months, realistically. Okay, let's move on, Mike. Now I got a number of points that I'm going to present to you. These are elements that are there to remind you I didn't create this. This is from you, but it's something for you to be reminded. How do I schedule 6 hours? This is just for one group. Some of you teachers, we found out you're teaching 5 classes, and not only are you teaching the language, they got you in music and they got you in some preparatory math class, and it doesn't even match your contract. They should treat you professionally. They give you these resources that as a teacher, to be effective, you need smaller contact, smaller groups. And some of you teachers, they just put 25, 30 students in there. And some of them are in the back looking at their phones, talking. They can't get engaged. So we need to solve that as well. So I can't do this by myself. And that's why you have this organization here that as we move along, you're going to have people that are going to speak up on your behalf, that are going to lay it on the line. Some people may move quicker than others and be an example to you, to be a resource for you, to encourage your board, your administrators, to recognize, hey, this language is so important by the declaration of our government and our boards that we need lower ratio of student to teacher. And some of you just can't be teaching those other subjects that are not related to teaching of the language. If it's culture, fine. If it's geography, fine. If it's math, fine. Because that's where our contact time has to expand. And we're going to have to create those resources to get to that point. So let's move on. I need those resources. I need more than just a language class. I need music, humanities, ethics, mathematics, geography, history, extracurricular activities, music, like band, even at home. Now we got to get our parents involved when we're a student. How do we do that? Because we need those parents that are going to elect those board members to come to bat for us as well. So we're going to have to strategize all that information. I was listening to a Zoom conference that Jay organized last year sometime, and a man from Ochis, his name was Jim Ochis, he was an Anishinaabe, and he told about how the Anishinaabe went throughout the East Coast and went through the Great Lakes, and they went through the prairies, and then they went up into Canada. And it was interesting because he could name all of these places. He had name places. The Blackfeet have name places throughout the region, like Jess said, the backbone, the head. Same as the Crow, they have name places throughout Montana, some parts of Canada, into the Wyoming and the Dakotas. So that's there. That's there. And it's just a matter of not only you being teachers, but if you're going to create your own curricula, because there isn't any, that summer you may need some curriculum development training or some lab setting to where you begin to take some of that traditional knowledge of name places or of music and put this into recordings or put this into a means that it could be measured. Because if you're going to utilize state funding, you're going to have to document that. But like Jesse's mentor, he took no money. He took no money from the governments. And that's amazing, because that puts him in control. He didn't want to have anybody to have the jurisdiction over him. And it was some remarkable effort that he did. But by the fact that we have a unique opportunity, a unique foundation, that our heritage, our civilization is covered in the Montana Constitution. Other tribes like the Dakotas, North and South, Wyoming, they don't have that verbiage. We're fortunate to have that. Somebody looking out for us. So that is something that we have to keep in mind, that is really important to us. Okay. Is the administration going to support my efforts? Will the board create policies to back me up? Will my community take ownership in learning our language and supporting these efforts? How do I get the resources I need to make 6 hours a day of language learning? How do we get our school and community to take ownership? That is our challenge, and we got to put all of these together for a plan. And it won't hurt for you to do your own assessments because you're going to be able to utilize that to create a plan to solve those problems, solve those issues, address those issues, and lay out the groundwork for you to move forward. That's what an assessment will do for you. It'll not only get you funds, but it'll also reinforce. It's not that we are embarrassed that we're going to share this issue. We got to swallow our pride and solve that with this assessment that we might do at our own homes. How do we improve? How do we get better? And that's where this documentation of our needs and evaluation come to play. Some people say, why do we have evaluation? They're going to question it be about my job. No, it was finding a way to improve or continue the success of what you're doing, and a reminder to reinforce you that you're doing what is expected of you. That's all it is. But some people don't think that way, and some people, they utilize it in the wrong way. If they're an administrator and using it as leverage against you, then they're in the wrong field. Let's move on. Is there a plan? Do all those big shots sitting in that tribal council have a plan? I don't know. But again, like I said, it's just me to remind you. How do I make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing? How do we make what we're doing better, and how do we continue to improve? How do we create vision, purpose, and overall the use of our teaching, our education in a user-friendly and gentle environment of our sacred languages? Because this is a gift, it's a medicine, it's a supernatural. It's ahead of us, it's an entity. I said earlier, a deity. I'm not much of a Christian, but to me, it's very sacred. Because I've seen the tobaccos and the pipe ceremonies, the fasting, that many people who ask for prayers, some of those come to be. And they didn't get that way when they took some kind of sacrament. Although there are other sacraments that are in line with our native views. Let's move on, Mike. How do I create incentives for teaching and learning our language? How do we get new learners to improve to higher levels of language use? So sometimes that was probably a question that Jesse had posed. We got these speakers, but how are we going to reinforce it? How are we going to create communities? How are we going to create environments to where this language is going to be expanded, where it's going to be used in a full function, holistic, complete, healthy environment? That's where we got to plan that. Some of you might think that if we build a plan in 10 years, that you might create a subdivision through HUD funding to where everybody in this subdivision practice the language, and there's an immersion school nearby, and it's protected. And it came through HUD funding. That's certainly possible if you start organizing and creating the groundwork for that. You can get there. How do we get our language learners to be the protectors and administrators of our educational world? Right now, I'm sure some of the immersion school people right now, they need administrators that think in that way. That's not here yet. For some it's there. But we need maybe programs of where they're learning school administration to have contingencies of Native American management of programs, Native American influence into the processes, what our identity are. Not Western, but our Native American way of thinking. That's our challenge, and that's maybe 5, maybe 10 years now. And that's, like I said, sometimes when you're in prayer, when you're in reflection, when you're in these ceremonies, some of the elders in their stories, there's something in that fire cracking or the steam coming off those rocks, give you a message. Hey, you be ready for this. And that's how some of our warriors had to be, because they had an enemy that could be coming forth, a greater enemy too, the one of our own people, but another one of a force that is based on lies and misinformation. I better not get too far into that. Let's move on. How do we create vision and leadership? Years ago, we were reflecting on a trip that we went to MSU. I took some students from Little Bighorn College, and we realized that our children are not learning leadership. That is totally wrong. Leadership will get people to work together. Leadership will help our people come together and work together and solve problems. But if that is absent, it's much more easier for these people to be conquered and assimilated and enculturated with the media, with their phones and the technology that isn't based with our pedagogy. And it's just a thought. Not only that, many of our children aren't learning leadership, but they're not learning economics. Economics is one of the strongholds of a civilization. I shared with my students that economics is an easy concept. All it is making the best of what you have. That's what it is. Making the best of what you have, meaning your language, meaning your skills, your physical ability, your intelligence, your cultural background. And it's not an abstract term, because we had economics and trade, like the Blackfeet follow the buffalo, and that was the natural resources, and that was the strength of their economy and their way of thinking in their life. The other day, I heard two Crow people on the radio talking about Yellowstone Park and that anniversary, and they said, "Oh, we survived on buffalo," and I was thinking, baloney. We flourished on the buffalo. They marginalized by saying we survived. We didn't survive, we flourished, we were rich. We were part of a huge network of other buffalo nations that traded and celebrated and had good times. Although we might have had wars, we still had fun. But that kind of, even though it was there were tribal members of the Crow, my father tribe, I didn't like that. We're not surviving, we flourish. And then another one, they said, "Oh, we migrated." We didn't migrate. We're not like them animals, but those animals are smart. They know where to go, where the calving season is, where the grass grows, where some of the plants have medicine and they grow and they help themselves. And there was a huge migratory route of many herds. We followed them with those seasons like Jesse was talking about. And we think about some people, I thought about of a native name the other day, of somebody said Buffalo Road. What is a Buffalo Road? A Buffalo Road is a huge herd of buffalo that go through a region because the grass in the prairies was a little bit taller than the reach of my fingers. It was like a jungle. I read a book And there was a passage in there that some pioneers wrote that they went to the Red River near Fargo. And somebody told them, you better cross right away because there's a buffalo herd coming, or else go up on top of that ridge and wait it out. They didn't think about it. So we'll just go up on that ridge and have a picnic. They waited 2 weeks for that herd to go. And it made a road for our Indian people to travel. And that was the Buffalo Road. Because in the prairie, those grasses that the farmers had terminated that are now extinct no longer happen, because in that grass were jungles of wolves, grizzly bears, places that they told you not to go if you were living that 150 some years ago. That's what the Buffalo Road is. And it's not like the grass that we see going from maybe Great Falls to Havre, that prairie. No, it's different, tall. It's like a jungle. But in that point that I wanted to make, our people were strong and they were eliminated by this genocide and the poverty of them losing their natural resource of the buffalo and the genocidal practices of the diseases that they put in these blankets. And that decimated some of our populations. Before that, we didn't migrate. We knew these patterns. We read them like literacy. We read them like the back of our hand. We knew the patterns, like I said earlier, like Jesse presented. When we got to these points, we had to expand our hunting grounds. Let's say this half is our original nation, okay? 20 years down the line, we have a population that grew. So they had to expand to get deer, to get elk. And they didn't just migrate, they knew these areas because this was on a cycle of nature that we knew for generations, way before that English came, way before the extermination, way before the genocidal practices and the lies that were put into these treaties. We expanded. We didn't migrate. That was my point. And we had an economy. But the same thing goes regarding our languages. What time do you have? 11th. This guy's on California time.
Almost 11.
Okay, let's move on here. There are some delusions and lies and assumptions we got to keep in mind. They will do it for us. Yeah, well, since when? And you know what I mean by they. And no angel's going to drop out of the sky like it says in the scriptures to say, hey, we love you Blackfeet so much, we're going to do this. If one came over, he'd probably kick you in the rear end and say, what the heck's the matter with you guys? And then again, we have that situation. It's not my problem. It is your problem. People are getting used to that stigma. And then they blame. That same energy that we have to blame is that same energy that we can to help. That same energy that people have in their bias and their bad mouth, and it's the same energy they could use to pray for somebody. And some of our people have given up. They've taken it for granted, like I said. Are we going to just sit back and watch it go by? Again, I'm only one person, but I'm here to remind you. I'm here to share with the young people and to remind some of you who are in the trenches that this is what this is all about. The government will do it. Since when? Let the tribes solve it. I'm not knocking some tribes. Some tribes are very successful. And then that, we need this, we need that. No. I know many of you are so talented that you don't really need resources to teach the language, although it helps. Some of you have the passion, the creativity, the leadership, the initiative, the foresight, the love, and you made it happen. Okay. They had me at a testing. They had me talk at a campaign rally. And then there was a guy there by the sound system, and I was really going off campaigning, Crow politics. Here, that microphone went off, and I said, well, here, my little brother cut me off here. I better shut up. Now I'm gonna ask you folks, stand up a little bit, kind of stretch around, take a breath, move around a little bit. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. And here's some of the highlights of that survey that we did. What we found out in one of the questions, just think, in Montana, we have the uniqueness, all of you. There are 11 spoken languages, including the sign language, so that's 12. Can you imagine that? Then we have people that moved in from the Dene. We have people that moved in from other nations. And there were 6 other languages that were represented. And those were like in Canada. Some of them were in Australia. Some of them were in Kansas and Oklahoma. They were represented on our virtual allies that we've seen in registration. Let's move. Some of the programs, some of them were speaking, teaching just basic words. Some were, 9 of them were focused on conversation, 5 on phrases. Next. 7 of the languages, of those 10, are being taught by a first language speaker, one of the class 7s, the people that we represent. And here's what Jay said. There was only 1 class 7 workshop since 2015. One interesting point, the teacher stated, I felt I did not have enough time. Geez, how many classes did they give her? Why such a load to correct all that homework and take care of a family and be part of a community? We need to cherish that person, whoever said that, and give her some relief. Move. This one's kind of low volume. I got some more fire. Okay. What would you like changed in the class 7 certification process? More conferences. Jay and Jonathan got this going. More contact time. Training conferences and workshops. As a classroom teacher, I felt class 7 teachers that are not also classroom teachers could benefit from classroom behavior management. Like I said, nobody taught some of these first language speakers about methods. And not blaming them, but that is the fault of that administration and that board to not invest into this, the professional development of one of our greatest resources in the community, our speakers. Okay, don't move. What would you like changed in the process? We want to see unions. We want support Testing to ensure people are proficient in the language and not just anybody getting class 7. Technical support, materials, workshops, conferences, more conferences. Certification. Need support for curriculum to teach and create more contact time. Next. What would you like in the change in the class 7 process? More training for teachers who work in the reservation time and more contact time. There is why I'm here, just to remind you what you already know. But what you already know, what you need to put in perspective, we'll probably go more in detail. I'll be going more in detail. I know some of you there's some other phenomenal workshop and phenomenal presenters here, like Jesse and some of the other people that are here for something that these gentlemen gave. They didn't go out there and ask for thousands of dollars. They didn't make you pay 600. They just figured that, you know, you were good poker players and you'd have money and get it over here. No, that was just me and the help of the Dakota. We need more training. 43 respondents to the assessment question have a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate. 6 reported they learned a traditional way as lifelong learners. 11 have a high school equivalency of education. 21 teachers reported they taught language over 10 years. Describe the training you've had to be a class 7 language and culture teacher. They attended a language class and ceremony. They grew up listening to grandparents. They've taken classes from 5 different fluent teachers over the course of their teaching career. There are 55 schools and colleges that teach language that responded. This is the scenario that we got to ask. Are there speakers now? We didn't ask that because it might be personal. They didn't have the contact time. We didn't want to attack them for something they wish to do, but they weren't given that opportunity. You know what I mean? Read between the lines. Did they get from point A to point B? There were 21 elementary teachers that attended last December. 35 teachers who reported they have more than 15. Why I put 15 in that questionnaire is that's probably the maximum of student to teacher ratio. Anything after that, sometimes there's people that don't get the benefit of learning. And the ideal is about 6, maybe 9. And some of these teachers are faced with 25, 30, 40 people. I had a classroom when I was teaching preparatory algebra one time, and there was 45 in that class. I could barely get to maybe a handful of them, as much as I wanted to help them prepare for the next level of mathematics. 45 is just too much. Ooh. 53% are asked to teach other classes. That says 47, a minority, are able to focus on language when the majority of them have to do other topics that's not professional. That is uncalled for because our language is more important. If they want somebody to teach some other preparatory classes, then hire somebody. Or they need a babysitter, get somebody else. Not one of our great resources of our teachers. Okay, here's the contact time key issue. 12 teachers reported that they teach less than 1 hour per day. 5 said they teach less than 1 to 2 hours. 9, less than about 3. 2 indicated 1 to 2 hours. 8 reported 3 to 4 hours. Is that in that formula that I showed you? No. So that's the purpose. We have to consider all of those factors and facets and put them together in a plan and take those into consideration, maybe even doing our own assessments to where we change that factor. Let's move. 14 teachers have less than 1 hour of preparation, while 12 have less than 1 hour to 2. You need to prepare. They need to lay out their curriculum. And if they don't have curriculum, that's a problem too. And sometimes what we found, Jay and Jonathan and Mike here, Marcy, found that these, and Chairman Beatty, that there is this gap here where them resources aren't reaching the people who need to utilize that. Somewhere it's caught somewhere else and put into a different cycle. Okay, 93 report the need to increase contact time. There it is. That's hence this presentation. 19 respondents are not familiar with immersion. That goes back to the lack of training, lack of professional development that these funds should address. And they're not because of administrators, it's because of maybe boards, but it also that maybe from the top, are these administrators from the state communicating effectively with the people that should be benefiting? Or they are just contacting friends and buddies or basketball fans? Hey, I'm one of them. I'm sorry about that. Back to that one. 22 respondents have a minimal and familiarity of immersion. That means they don't know it. They heard about it. Somebody told them, they attended a workshop. Did they apply? That's where we got to address that. I'm not picking on the people. I'm trying to utilize this data to get you the resources that you need. To get this for you to create curriculum, to get you to be treated fairly on the pay scale, to be treated with respect, not second-class citizens that, oh, here's somebody that needs a job, we'll just have them watch these Indian kids. No, we got other ideas. 96 of the respondents are willing to implement language acquisition methods. That's like everybody. That 4% that didn't answer, it's probably not their day. But what the heck? 37 lack training to transition to adapting methods. Well, 29 reported lacking the time. That's percentage. There were 15 respondents that stated they were not offered training opportunities, professional development for acquisition methods. We need to change that. 36 indicated the lack of time has prevented them from participating in training for language acquisition. 26 responded they've had to create their own resources. Geez, that's kind of uncalled for. Well, then again, at least we know that. At least we know that and we could solve that. Okay, 21 of the teachers provided their own resources. Geez, that's like 2 people out of 10 that had to do something. They were on their own. 9 reported that they didn't have anything. That's almost the same amount of the languages spoken, that they didn't give them anything. Hey, you're on your own. Next. That place look familiar? 48% of the teachers that responded were unfamiliar with MILP. Where did that lose? What tribal chairman didn't tell the school, or what school administrator didn't tell the board? What board didn't tell those teachers? 47, that's almost half, were unaware of ARPA. Move. 55 were not familiar with the Cultural Integrity Commitment Act. We need to change that. That's all. We're not going to blame anybody. We're just going to change it and improve that. So maybe in a year or two, we do the survey again. It'll be maybe in the 80s where we're comfortable with that. Or other questions, because we could move past that too. 55 were unfamiliar with the Digital Academy. That's more than half. And this is a reminder, if you ever get the chance to do assessment or survey, you darn well better answer, folks, because it's going to help other Native people. If you turn your back to it and not participate, you're cutting off the food supply to some of your people, and you don't want to have that on your conscience. Because that data and that survey to back up the documenting our needs is important. So you answer these surveys, you answer these assessments. Okay, let's go on. 6 people responded. They were knowledgeable of the Office of Public Instruction. 6. How many do we have over there? 200 and some? And in person? 218 and 6 knew about OPI. Where is the communication not happening? We got to ask ourselves. Who from the top is not communicating with the right people, or what media source is going to get to these teachers on the grassroots level, or to even parents for that matter? Let's move on. 23 were unaware of the superintendent of the Office of Public Instruction. 40% answered they are unaware of the role, because they're in the trenches trying to work with limited resources they have to create, no training. And nobody in that line of authority is not providing them with information that they could utilize for professional development. 54 were not familiar with Digital Academy, MILP, and the Immersion Initiative. Well, 3.5, meaning 2 people of that 214 knew about that. Not a good rate. But we could make that. It's not to point fingers, it's a point to solve. We're here to solve this, not to attack it. If we were in the gossip lines of what's going on in the Res Talk, we could attack that. But here as professionals and working together for the same cause, we're taking this problem that's obvious and we're going to turn it around to increase it, to improve it, to where these resources are to the right channels. Okay. Was that it? I guess so. I think I had some more there, Mike, but we'll stop there. I really would like some people to just comment on their own. You don't have to ask me a question, but if you got something that could reinforce some of my points, I welcome you to come up here and just tell a little bit about your story. And if some of you people out there in the virtual world want to express something, please do, because here's a good chance. If not, I'm just going to go out there with this mic and put it in your face. Okay. Anybody? This gentleman here has been nodding his head. I don't know. I was kind of looking to see if there was something on my clothes or something.
Well, I don't have anything to offer to the discussion because I'm not a teacher. I'm a writer, and I'm writing about all of the efforts that we're making in Montana for Indian language revitalization. But I speak as someone who I'm enrolled with the Little Shell tribe, and my grandparents spoke our language. And to be honest, I don't even know what that language was. I don't know if they were speaking Cree or Ojibwe. They might have been speaking Michif, and that's how quickly this stuff was taken from my direct family. So the work that I think you're doing as Indian language educators, we don't get our proper grasp of sovereignty without reconnecting to our language of all of our tribes. So I think this is possibly the most important thing that we have to connect to as tribal nations moving forward. That's just my unlanguage educated opinion, and what you're doing is fantastic. This is great. Thank you.
Dr. Reelberg, right here. Ashqua. Oh, Aniga.
Good morning again. You know, I've been raised with the old people, my elders, and I see we had some Ursulines boarding schools. I went to 3 boarding schools, and my folks wouldn't believe me how they treat me, you know. And we had no way to go to school. I had to walk about half a mile, maybe more than that. So anyway, my folks just kept bringing me to boarding schools. Ursulines was a nun school where the nuns are. It was hard for me, you know. I couldn't understand that, you know. I'm a full-blood Ponderay, and I couldn't believe where they were sending me, you know. But anyway, it hurts, really hurts. And I had to sit with my folks when I got older and explain it to me, you know, why? Why did they send me? Seemed like they wouldn't believe me. I said there was closed doors. This was different for, you know, they would be nice to me, then when they would leave, it was different. But anyway, I went to 3 boarding schools, and I stuck with the language. Every time I come home, I had elders there. And years ago, they used to say, we're going to lose our language some of these days. And there's so many of them, you know, there were so many of them. Our elders. And I said, no, you guys are going to be here all the time. One day I woke up, there was no elders, speakers. They're all gone. You know, I've been working at Ngusum for 19 years, emergent school. It's hard for me, you know, if I'm by myself talking, steady, Indian. You know, I had one of my elders, we used to talk back and forth in our language. You know, and I was hearing these people this morning talking about their language. It's good. We're trying to survive that, to get it back up there. I'm proud. My elders used to say, language is stronger than Suyapi, white, you know. It is. Today I stand here, you know, I am proud. I remember when my folks used to go to town, they would dress up. My elders dress up. So, am my time up? I don't know. I don't even know what that means. And they used to dress nice, you know, big hats, really dress nice. Now we don't have that no more. We're Indian people. We are Indian people. Be proud to be an Indian. Be proud our language, even if we know 1 word or 2 words, be proud of them. I'm proud to be an Indian. It's hard to be an Indian. They used to make fun of me. Now here I am, still standing here. Yeah. Good. See, I'm learning sign language now. Anyway, I feel proud. I like that guy right there. Every time I see him, he makes my day. He does. Okay, I'm done.
Let's give a round of applause.
I'd just like to thank you, Lanny. My name's Steve Arca. I'm from up on the res up here. I work with the culture committees, Salish Cuddly Spec Culture Committee, adult language program. And I'm a second language learner. So Steven's my uncle. He just got done talking. They grew up with the language, and I am the next generation behind the boarding school era, I guess. So that was taken away from us, you know. So this is just stuff that happened to us. And as learning the language these past 10 years, contact time is the most important thing. You know, the more time you have to learn the language, the more you're going to be able to do it. You get past what Jesse was talking about, that shame where it's hard to get up and talk in front of people and tell them your story, tell them who you are, tell them about the language learning and what that means to each individual. It's a, but I do know that through learning language, resources are the hardest thing. You know, you want to learn Spanish, you want to learn French, you want to learn any other language. There's so many ways to learn, so many. You want to learn any of our given languages of us people sitting in this room, you know, all of a sudden those resources are very limited. And I think you just take what you have and just run with it as far as you can, you know, and encourage everybody around you to be involved, you know, to help that journey go along. You're going to fight each other along the way, and we just have to figure that out. We have to figure that out. We have to be adults about it. But the fact is, we're all battered and bruised because of all the trauma in our lives. And some of us, even as adults, we're still like children, and we still act that way. So we need to figure that out, you know. We need to heal from that trauma and move forward. And a lot of what Lanny said here just this past hour or so is very true, you know, and some of that hits home pretty hard. But it's really something we have to work through to become more effective at teaching the language in our public schools. And right here, I'm sitting with these guys from Cusum, just like, and we piggybacked off of what Cutswood School does, you know, and we have our struggles and we do the best we can. And that's all we can ask is do the best we can today. You know, honor our elders, the fight and the struggles they had, and blast through it and try something new, you know, pick that up and try that out. If it's something that we've always done before and it's not working, it's time to change. You know, we need to make and adjust those changes. And it's hard because sometimes we end up undermining our elders, you know, and that's a tough struggle. But once we figure that out and they see what we're doing and they kind of agree with us, and you're going to move forward with it. So it's, you know, it's just really delicate. I just encourage everybody just to keep moving. Thank you.
I guess we have somebody online that's going to make a comment. So MBH, you're on.
Can you hear me good?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Tilchasht Ishtaquinchut, Mickey Bear Cub Hudson. I'm from over here near the Caldwell Reservation, and I have a story to tell about, you know, touching on the lateral violence within communities, in the language community especially. I earned my certification in language in record time, and due to politics, my tribal council took my language certification from me. To this day, I'm still fighting with them. They won't even release the resolution to me to explain how I lost it. What did I do wrong? And in my eyes, I haven't done anything wrong, and it really sucks. So when you're talking about, you know, these people who just are in it for whatever reason, it's true. I'm a victim of that, but they can't take what I've learned. I continue to study. I continue to teach whoever wants to learn from me or help them with work that they have doing. But it sucks being blackballed from your own tribe when, like you said, we're all very, very valuable resources when we know our language. And my language has one fluent speaker. She's going to be 96 this year. Our time has been limited with her for the past 20 years. And once she's gone, what do we do? How do we keep this going? Because none of us are fluent. We know a lot. We can say a lot of words, but can we carry on our conversations with each other? And so I just hope that people there are listening, and that any kind of lateral violence within the language community is really detrimental, highly detrimental to to everybody, to our whole people. And I like to thank you for the opportunity to attend this conference via Zoom, because I don't have transportation. I've been unemployed since I lost my jobs, and it's really empowering, and it feels good to hear your words. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, the main speaker. Everything you're saying is hitting home, and I just want you to know that I really, really, really appreciate every word that you've said, how you've articulated it, the resources you've pointed out, the points in your presentation, all of it. And I hope that it hits everyone in their hearts, and everybody takes this and they think about it, and they bring it back home to their communities. Lam lam.
At this time, I ask Marlon Spoonhunter to share some words of encouragement to everybody. He's a good man, educator.
Testing. Is it on? Moi baset nate na ba ni nate hinan ena. That's got nothing not nani anata hinan 18. Ni justin ne hawa na so nan tid no hinan 18. Had ni see tana what had ni debiti no tayana ni siha hinan ena hinan 18. Good morning. My name is Marlon Spoonhunter. I'm a Northern Rapo. I moved home about 12 years ago when, I lived on the Blackfeet Reservation off and on for about 28 years, and I never really spoke my language up there. Actually, I learned basic Blackfeet. So if you think you can't learn any other language, it's possible. And I was able to pick up, and the only way I remembered some of the Blackfeet words was I would teach in my classroom. And then I moved back home, and my sister, Nitani Bay, Sinzan Line, told me that you need to teach the language to your staff. So we start teaching it at the tribal college. So, and then again, that was another way of learning, with, working with kids and then working with adults. But, we go back to the point, that some of our speakers have already mentioned. Like Jesse said, little kids aren't afraid to learn. They'll get out there and they'll just, actually they listen pretty good and they repeat the words just almost exactly as the teacher. But as adults, we kind of get scared and, we get embarrassed, but, we have to overcome that. And I read a quote somewhere that they said, we can't blame anybody if we lose our language. Because as a tribe, that's our language. So if we're going to keep it, we need to speak it. And no matter what happened in history or anything, now is the time that we have to do it. And we're the ones that are going to be responsible to either create more fluent speakers or, totally lose our language. My sister told me one day, she said, I work for, the school district, and he said, there's people that always say we're going to lose our language in 20 years. She said, well, I've been working with the language for 30 years. And she said, Actually, it's getting a little better now since we have more people to speak. So, I think that if you really want to learn it, it's got to be in your heart. And if it's in your heart, you will learn it. And like in our tribe, we say, hey, none of batan. Our language is holy, so we have to treat it as such. And if we treat it as a holy language and learn it, then it'll, like somebody had mentioned earlier, our languages will take care of us. Oh, hey, who saw? Oh.
Oh. Okay, I'd like to welcome anybody to share some comments. Other than that, we're going to turn it over to Jonathan. Is there anybody online that has anything they'd like to share? Okay, I guess we appreciate your presence there in the virtual world. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to Representative Jonathan.